No mental treatment of any kind should be given to people without their knowledge and their special consent. The following exceptions may be considered. First, in treating insane people, whose minds are not capable of determining whether they wish to be treated or not. Second, in cases where people, through accident or for any other reason, were rendered unconscious. Third, intoxicated persons whose powers of discrimination are temporarily in abeyance. When handling such cases, the operator must be very careful to protect himself from mental transmission of the physical condition of the patient, as otherwise the patient will be disintoxicated at the expense of the operator, who will in his turn become intoxicated. The fourth instance of mental treatment without the consent of the individual is in the case of small children, who are not yet sufficiently developed in their conscious status to make their own choice. In such cases, the consent of the parents, especially of the mother, is absolutely necessary. Without that consent, no successful treatment could be given to a child, because the mother thought acts upon a child as a protecting cloak. Therefore, not only the consent of the mother is required, but she must be included in the treatment in order to reach her child properly. As a general rule, it is advisable always to protect oneself mentally, when treating, from the possible transfer of the negative condition of the patient to the operator. Also, when in a crowd, or among people whose thoughts are not harmonious, that self-protection is necessary. It is achieved by mentally denying the possibility of transfer of such condition from one individual to another. It is like surrounding oneself with a mental wall which, if properly built, is strong enough to repel any such negative intrusions. Yet when building that mental wall of self-protection, one must be very careful not to entertain any fear or doubt of its efficacy. One must remember that one is a law to oneself on the plane of mind, and doubts and fears are cracks in that mental wall of self-protection, through which that from which it is desired to be protected can penetrate. Though the wall of mental protection is a good bulwark against the ordinary mental intruder, it is not sufficient when dealing with so-called mental malpractices, that is, the use of mental forces by some individual for evil ends. There the only complete self-protection is vibrations of love, these being all-powerful, perfect in every way, pervading the three planes, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. They form around one a sphere of love which, like a diamond armor, repels and destroys every negative vibration launched against it. That important point must always be remembered, that love is the only safe protection we have * whenever mental vibrations are used on one's own self, be it for healing, business, mental self-development, or any other purpose. The same process is employed as described in the beginning of this lesson, with the sole difference that the concentrated thought must be, so to say, inhaled together with the air when the diaphragm is lifted and the solar plexus expanded. Thus the concentrated thought will be thrown by the self-consciousness of the operator directly into his own subconsciousness, where the process of multiplication and development is the same as when that concentrated thought is thrown into the subconsciousness of another individual. Needless to say, the ordinary thought necessary to establish a connection between two parties is not to be used here. It is exactly the process used when one is trying to learn something by heart. To memorize properly means to plant one's own thought seeds in the ground of one's own subconsciousness, where they will in due time yield a harvest. To remember is nothing but the ability to contact at will one's own subconsciousness, where all impressions are stored. When treating oneself mentally, it is always advisable to start with the magnetic treatment, because of the extraordinary harmonizing effect of the magnetic vibrations. When treating patients at a distance, the ordinary mental vibrations do not imply by themselves a magnetic treatment. In order to combine the two, the following method is to be used. Concentrate the mind on the patient in such a way as to think of him as present. Make the mental image of the patient so real and tangible that he appears to be actually present in the physical body. The mental image of the patient thus created will be the reflection of his physical self, and each mental cell of that reflection of his body will be connected by invisible mental vibrations with the corresponding cell of the physical body of the patient. As there are about 50 billion cells in the human body, each of which vibrates independently of the others, the mental image of the patient will therefore have at least 50 billion mental lines through which will flow the magnetic current directed to that mental image by the operator. In order to increase the flow of the magnetic current to the mental image created by the operator, it is advisable not only to direct one's hands, as indicated in the magnetic treatment, toward the mental image, but also to use, especially for beginners, either a chair or some other convenient material object, which must be imagined to be the body of the patient, and on which the hands of the operator may rest. The magnetic current sent into that material object will, because of the mental image of the patient intimately connected with the object, be transmitted from it to the patient in the manner previously stated. During such absent treatments, another feature can be taken advantage of, which it is not advisable to employ in present treatments. Audible treatment can be applied. The sound vibrations of the spoken words will also strike the mental image of the patient, and from there will be conveyed, together with the magnetic current, to the patient himself, thus increasing the power of the magnetic vibrations. When properly executed, such combined absent treatments secure most powerful results. In fact, they are much stronger than the ordinary treatments, with the patient actually present, because the patient's negative condition produces no impression on the operator, and therefore has no effect on him, on account of the distance which separates the two. Usually the patient, on the other end of the mental line, feels the presence of the operator as vividly, as tangibly and closely, as if he were actually there, in his physical body. In some instances the patient may even see the operator and talk with him, and be convinced that the operator really came to him, although the operator may be, at that time, 1,000 miles away. That peculiar mental and magnetic phenomenon, based on the law of vibration, explains how sometimes the same individual is seen by people at the same time in several different places. For some reason, those people were thinking very strongly about the one who appeared to them in what is called his astral body. Through one of his rays they perceived the whole individual. As through a ray of the sun we can see the sun itself, and as each individual radiates innumerable rays, many people can therefore simultaneously perceive that individual across space in various places. All that is necessary is that they shall be in rapport with him. In other words, they should be magnetically and mentally attuned. There is another form of mental force which is much used nowadays, and which is called hypnotism and suggestion. Suggestion includes also autosuggestion. Those methods are all fundamentally immoral, and therefore reprehensible. They violate one of the basic rights and privileges of every human being, the right of self-determination. They are based exclusively on willpower, and their method consists in using that willpower in connection with thoughts in order to subjugate the other individual's willpower. If abused, they utterly destroy the character of the subject, and even when used with moderation, they still always neutralize his individuality. Even autosuggestion works destructively, in the respect that by continual repetition of the same thought, the mind of the individual becomes numbed, mentally frozen, almost lifeless, acting like an automaton. This shows how unscientific such methods are, since they can produce such negative results. Hypnotism, suggestion and autosuggestion, instead of building up the character, destroy it, and make their victims helpless puppets in the hands of the outrager. Many crimes and evil actions have been performed by different people and were attributed solely to them, when in reality they were nothing but channels through which was operating the hidden mental power of some other individual. Under no consideration should anyone ever use that power, even for healing purposes, nor should one ever let oneself be hypnotized, even if only for the sake of an experiment. In every instance, a mental and moral loss will be the result of it, and even the operator himself cannot escape the penalty for violating such fundamental laws. Soon or late, as a result of the reaction of his own destructive thoughts and activities, in accordance with the operation of the mental laws, he himself will lose all willpower, will have his mental and moral forces almost entirely obliterated, and will die a physical, mental, and moral wreck. No one should ever expect to be able to escape such penalty, because there is no compromise with the laws of nature. On the other hand, the scientific mental treatment, as was stated previously, consists in affirming eternal verities, without any desire to force them upon one. The mental laws will take care that a result shall be obtained. The personal responsibility of the operator is thrown entirely upon the laws themselves, and the laws take good care that everything shall be carried out properly. That scientific method of mental treatment is the stimulation of the individual and his awakening to his true status. The suggestion method, on the contrary, it ends the veil of the individual consciousness and paralyzes its activities. Humanity of today passes through a great crisis. The development of man's latent forces, the power of the liberated thought, bring about fundamental changes in human nature. The ordinary means by which the outside world is contacted are no longer sufficient. New ways are sought and found. Until today, human beings have been conscious of only 5 senses, channels through which impressions are conveyed to them or from them. As humanity is now approaching the 6th period of its evolution, called allegorically in the Bible the 6th day of creation, a new sense, the 6th sense, is being developed. That new channel through which impressions are conveyed is called intuition. Intuition is that something which so often speaks within us and seems to tell us what to do and what not to do. It is not the voice of our conscience, which is heard only when we have done something wrong. It is a still, small voice, called often the voice of God, of divinity, but which after all is only our own higher self, called the superconsciousness, of which our self-consciousness becomes aware. Our higher self knows everything. It is not limited by time or space, and does not need reason to aid its mental work. It knows, because it embraces simultaneously the cause and the effect, the past, present, and future. Whenever we listen to that small voice of intuition and follow its advice, we obtain positive results, though sometimes that voice seems to speak against our own reason. After all, it is but a seeming contradiction of our reason, due to the present limitation of that faculty. In order to develop intuition, we must train ourselves to differentiate between the voice of our own desires and that of our superconsciousness. There is an easy way to discriminate between the two. Whenever intuition speaks to us, there is felt a peculiar sense of peace and harmony, though it may happen in a moment of most disharmonious conditions. On the other hand, when our desires speak within us, a sensation of restlessness comes upon us. Therefore, listen to the voice of peace and wisdom which will lead one into harmony, and discard the aggressive clamor of desires, as no good will come out of it. The more one listens to intuition, the more is intuition developed, and the surer and wiser become all our actions. Thus human beings, in developing within themselves that divine ray of intuition, will manifest wisdom, will become 6-pointed stars, stars of wisdom, and will bring about the dawn of the new day, the day of peace, of harmony and of power, Questions and answers. 1. What is one of the great problems of today? To educate one's mind to regenerate itself. 2. How is it done? By raising the vibrations of mind to those of truth and love. 3. How did the first mistake originate? It originated through mind, and through mind it must be destroyed. 4. How does mind express itself in our present state of consciousness? Through mental vibrations, combined units of which are called thoughts. 5. What are mental vibrations? The first manifestation of self-conscious magnetic vibrations. 6. What role does the brain play in the thinking process? It acts as a transmitting station. 7. What is the telepathic apparatus? It is the pituitary body, located in the front part of our brain, which sends out into space mental vibrations in the form of thoughts. 8. Does the telepathic apparatus also receive mental messages? Yes, it is both a sending and receiving station. 9. How does the ordinary thought proceed? In spheric mental waves emanating from the telepathic apparatus. 10. Is the ordinary thought perceptible at a long distance? No, because it becomes too diluted. 11. What is thought dust? Loose particles of ordinary thoughts, floating in space and surrounding the earth like a cloud. 12. How is the thought made strong and perceptible at any distance? By concentrating it, making it one-pointed. 13. How is this done? Through an effort of willpower, the spheric mental vibrations are focused in one point. 14. How is a concentrated thought sent at a distance? By using the life energy stored in the solar plexus to propel that thought. 15. What will be the guiding line which will bring that thought to its destination? Invisible mental lines previously established by the ordinary thought between the sender and the receiver. 16. To what gender does thought belong in general? Every thought passing through the self-consciousness, which is of the male gender, assumes that gender. 17. How many genders are there in mind? 2. The male, represented by the self-consciousness, and the female, represented by the subconsciousness. 18. Has every individual the two genders in their respective minds? Yes, without distinction of sex. 19. What is the first operation of the concentrated thought sent through space? It strikes the telepathic apparatus of the receiving individual, is from there conveyed to the brain, and the individual becomes conscious of it. 20. What is the second operation of the same concentrated thought? After having contacted the telepathic apparatus, it sinks into the subconsciousness of the receiving individual. 21. What does it do there? It grows you an ordinary seed thrown into the soil. 22. What is the main quality of the subconsciousness? It increases and multiplies every thought seed thrown into it. 23. Does the subconsciousness possess the power of discrimination? No. Being below the self-conscious state, it does not know how to differentiate between the positive and the negative, and rears the wrong as well as the right. 24. When does the self-consciousness become aware of the thought seed thrown in its own subconsciousness? When the thought seed, becoming a thought plant, penetrates into the self-consciousness. 23. Why is it difficult to eradicate a thought from the subconsciousness? Because it has rooted itself there. 26. What is the next operation of the concentrated thought? It leaves the receiving individual and proceeds again into space. 27. How does it act there? Like a torpedo, it rushes through space, attracting to it loose particles of thought dust of corresponding rates of vibration. 28. Why does it attract those thought particles? Because of the magnetic power of attraction of the life energy with which the concentrated thought is charged. 29. What is the result of that attraction? The concentrated thought grows bigger and stronger. 30. How far does it proceed into space? As far as the Earth's attraction permits it. 31. What then happens to the thought? Like a boomerang, it returns to its point of departure. 32. What laws govern the operation of the thought? The same laws acting on the mental plane which govern physical bodies on the physical plane. 33. Does the concentrated thought return direct to its starting point? If it was sent into space without any definite destination, it returns directly. If it was sent to another individual, in returning it uses some individual as a transmitting station. 34. Why is a transmitting station needed in the latter case? Because of the law of polarity. 35. Why is the concentrated thought often not recognized on its return? Because it has grown so big. 36. Is any thought, feeling, or action, good or evil, ever lost? No. It always comes back to its author, vastly increased. 37. Is there any possible way to avoid that coming back? No, because it is due to the operation of the law, and one reaps what one has sown. 38. What does that third operation of the concentrated thought explain? That saying of Jesus, with what measure ye mete it shall be measured to you again, a measure full, pressed down, and running over. 39. What is the difference between a creative thought and simply a thought? The creative thought is charged to the full with magnetic life energy. The ordinary thought, on the contrary, has only a very limited amount of life energy. 40. What power does the creative thought possess? It attracts to us all things which we may desire. 41. Can we have all our desires thus realized? Yes, if they are not contrary to the universal laws. 42. Which is the best method of securing the desired success? Make the mental contact with universal life energy. Make the desired object real mentally. Repeat this as often as possible, and the desired object will come into one's life through the power of attraction of the creative thought. 43. Is it also necessary to use physical effort to bring about the desired success? Yes, because of our present state of consciousness, which makes it necessary to translate everything also into matter in order to materialize it in one's life. 44. When will thought become an actual direct creation? When Lucifer, the fallen mind, will be restored to his original status of eternal perfection. 45. What will that last step be called? The spiritual state of consciousness, heaven, or the realm of harmony. 46. What are diseases? They are mental parasites, preying on the subconsciousness of the individual and manifesting themselves to him in the form of ailments. 47. Are those mental parasites negative through and through? No. They are but thin films of negative vibrations imprisoning the positive life energy within them. 48. How can they be destroyed? By concentrated positive mental vibrations, which will pierce them like an arrow. 49. What is the best way to treat diseases mentally? First, deny the fear of the disease. Next, mentally realize the positive truth back of that denial. 50. How many times should the denial of a fear be repeated? One short denial, with authority and force, is sufficient. 51. What positive statements should be used in order to bring about the healing? All knowledge concerning man's eternal and direct relation with the Absolute, and his perfect status in the realm of eternal harmony, should be realized in treating the patient mentally. 52. What are the effects of the positive work of the concentrated thought? It awakens within the patient the conscious realization of his eternal perfect status and thus heals him. 53. Is it necessary to picture mentally the body of a patient as perfect? No. All that is needed is the realization that the fundamental vibrations of the body of the patient, representing the activities of his soul, are basically harmonious. 54. Is it necessary, when treating the patient mentally, to treat him also magnetically at the same time? It is advisable, whenever possible, to combine the two treatments, for the following reasons. First, because of the extraordinary harmonizing effect of the magnetic life force on both operator and subject. And secondly, because the negative is thus attacked from two sides, from the outside magnetically, and from the inside mentally. 55. What is the best attitude for the operator to take during mental healing? An attitude of love and compassion. 56. What is mental chemicalization? It is the reaction of the negative to the mental influence of the positive. The bubble of the negative inflates to the limit before bursting. 57. What is to be done in case of mental chemicalization? Explain to the patient the causes of it, and persevere in the treatment to the end. 58. How long should one treat mentally? No definite rule can be given. The operator must sense within himself when to stop. As a general rule, from 5 to 15 minutes is quite sufficient. In exceptionally acute cases, treatments may last several hours. 59. Can one treat people mentally without their special consent for it? No, except in the following instances. First, when treating insane people. Secondly, when treating people rendered unconscious. Third, intoxicated people. Fourth, children. 60. How should children be treated? By including the mother also in the treatment. 61. Is it advisable to protect oneself mentally when treating patients, or when mingling with different people? Yes, in order to prevent the penetration of undesirable thought seeds into one's subconscious mind. 62. How is that protection established? By building around oneself a mental wall. 63. Does mental protection secure one complete safety? No. Only love vibrations give one complete protection, because they form around an individual a complete sphere of vibrations which nothing negative can pierce through. Love is the only safe protection we have. 64. What process is to be used in mental self-healing? The same method as is used in healing others, except that instead of sending the concentrated thought to another individual, it is allowed to sink into one's own subconsciousness. 63. Can magnetic and mental treatments be combined when treating a patient at a distance? Yes. 66. What is the method of procedure? Create through mental concentration the image of the patient. Then treat that image both magnetically and mentally as if it were actually the patient himself. 67. Through what means will the magnetic and mental forces be conveyed from the image to the patient himself? Through billions of mental lines connecting the two. 68. Is it advisable to use audible mental treatment in such cases? Yes. 69. What is the difference between the scientific method of mental treatment and hypnotism, suggestion, and autosuggestion? The first awakens the individual to his true, perfect, and eternal status. The second, third, and fourth paralyze the expression of individuality by substituting new beliefs for old ones. 70. Are hypnotism, suggestion, and autosuggestion dangerous? Yes, they are one of the most dangerous and most immoral abuses of mental force. 71. Should hypnotism, suggestion, or autosuggestion be used in therapeutics? No, under no consideration. 72. What is the penalty for the abuse of the mental force? The complete loss of it. 73. What is the sixth sense? It is intuition. 74. How does intuition express itself? Through an inner voice which is continually speaking to us. 75. What is the practical value of intuition? It enables one to sense truth independently of the reasoning powers. 76. What is the sign by which the voice of intuition can be distinguished from other inner voices? Whenever intuition speaks to us, a peculiar sense of peace and harmony is felt. 77. How can intuition be developed? By continually listening to its voice and coordinating our reason with it. 78. What are the practical results obtained by developing intuition? Man will become six-pointed. That means perfectly balanced. 79. What effect would that have on humanity's evolution? It would bring about the dawn of the new day, the day of peace, of harmony, and of power.